Was Edward II truly dead, or was a carefully constructed lie draped over a desperate king, a secret kept beneath layers of deceit and whispered plots? Did Isabella, the queen scorned, orchestrate a macabre game of shadows, a desperate bid to reclaim her husband and crown? And what role did Berkeley and Maltravers, those shadowy figures of betrayal, play in this deadly dance? Let's unravel the tangled threads of a royal murder, a clandestine escape, and a kingdom plunged into chaos, a story far stranger than any ballad. The year is 1327. England shivers under the weight of political intrigue, a simmering resentment directed at Edward II, a king increasingly perceived as weak, indulgent, and utterly out of touch. His obsession with male favorites, his disastrous military campaigns, and the scandalous influence of his wife Isabella of France have sown discord throughout the realm. But the whispers of discontent aren't just about Edward's failings, they're about a far more sinister possibility: the king's demise. It began with a letter, a frantic plea from Berkeley, the Earl of Somerset, a man suddenly thrust into a position of immense power and, it seemed, a terrifying secret. He penned his missive to the Chancellor John de Hotham, a stark declaration: the king is dead. The message, delivered with chilling urgency, ignited a firestorm of speculation and fear. But was it true? Or was it a calculated maneuver, a desperate gambit to seize control? The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of confusion and frantic activity. Edward II, a man accustomed to unquestioned obedience, was discovered in Kenilworth Castle, seemingly bewildered and disoriented. He was promptly taken into custody, ostensibly for his own safety, but the air crackled with suspicion. The deposition oath, a formal declaration of his abdication, was swiftly drawn up, a legal framework designed to legitimize the power grab of Mortimer, the Earl of March, and his allies. But here's where things get truly bizarre. The deposition oath, intended to solidify the transfer of power, contained a peculiar addition, a clause demanding the oaths of allegiance from those who hadn't publicly supported the move. It was a blunt instrument, a threat wielded against the opposition, a way to silence dissent and enforce a chilling conformity. Yet something felt off. The deposition wasn't driven by genuine grief or a desire for justice. It was a calculated act of control, a desperate attempt to consolidate power. And that's when the story takes a sharp, unsettling turn. The deposition oath, the one officially recorded, was markedly different from the one whispered about in the corridors of power. It was a show, a theatrical performance designed to intimidate, not a heartfelt expression of loss. The deposition itself, the act of formally declaring Edward's abdication, was delayed. The deputation to Kenilworth hadn't yet seen the king to force the king to abdicate. The intention wasn't simply to strip Edward of his crown, it was to maintain a facade, to perpetuate the illusion of a king who was, in all but name, still ruling. Think about it. Mortimer and his allies weren't interested in a swift, decisive transfer of power. They wanted to control the narrative, to manipulate the perception of Edward's death, to ensure that the king remained a pawn in their grand scheme. The deposition oath, with its added threat, was a tool to achieve that goal, a way to silence opposition and solidify their grip on the throne. Meanwhile, a shadow campaign was unfolding. Berkeley and Maltravers, the architects of this elaborate deception, were tasked with keeping Edward alive, hidden away from prying eyes. The logistics were staggering. The king, a man accustomed to luxury and deference, was transported in disguise, concealed within the folds of a tapestry, a prisoner of war masquerading as a captive ruler. The details of this clandestine operation are shrouded in mystery, a tangled web of intercepted letters, secret meetings, and whispered promises. The Earl of Lancaster, a key player in the unfolding drama, played a crucial and deeply ambiguous role. He seemingly orchestrated the indenture, a formal agreement that transferred custody of the king to Berkeley and Maltravers, a document designed to appear legitimate but likely forged in the fires of political expediency. But the indenture wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a carefully constructed trap. Lancaster, ever the shrewd politician, used Berkeley's ambition to his advantage, exploiting his desire for recognition and reward. He drew up the agreement ostensibly to secure his own position, while simultaneously ensuring that Roger, another key figure in the conspiracy, remained close enough to maintain control. It was a masterful display of manipulation, a testament to the ruthless ambition of those involved. The question of Edward's whereabouts during this critical period remains a subject of intense debate. Was he truly dead, as the deposition oath proclaimed? Or was he, as Doherty suggests, spirited away in a carefully orchestrated transfer of custody, a peaceful exchange of power disguised as a violent abduction? The evidence points to a more complex scenario, a blend of deception, manipulation, and calculated risk. The arrival of Thomas de Berkeley's letter, a curt confirmation of the king's release, provided a crucial piece of the puzzle. It revealed a chain of events stretching back days, a series of carefully orchestrated moves designed to conceal the truth. The timing of the release, coinciding with the granting of wardships for Warwick and Audley, further complicated the picture. These weren't simply acts of consolidating power, they were strategic maneuvers designed to secure the king's future, to ensure that he remained under the control of those who had orchestrated his deception. And then there's the matter of the council, a shadowy body of influential figures who served as Edward's advisors. The Brut, a medieval chronicle, provides a list of these advisors, a roll call of powerful nobles, bishops, and barons. But Doherty's research reveals a more extensive list, a testament to the sheer scale of Edward's court and the complex web of alliances and rivalries that characterized the era. The Queen, Isabella, a woman of formidable intelligence and unwavering ambition, was at the heart of this drama. She hadn't simply accepted Edward's deposition, she had actively orchestrated it, using her influence and resources to achieve her goals. The vast wealth at her disposal, amassed through years of lavish spending and shrewd financial dealings, was not simply a symbol of her power. It was a tool of manipulation, a means of rewarding her loyal supporters and punishing her enemies. The whispers of discontent surrounding Edward's reign were, in part, fueled by Isabella's own actions. Her scandalous relationships, her extravagant lifestyle, and her blatant disregard for traditional conventions had alienated the English public and undermined the authority of the crown. But the story doesn't end with the deposition oath or the clandestine escape. It continues with the aftermath, the accusations, the trials, and the ultimate fate of those involved. Roger, the Earl of Essex, the architect of the deception, was eventually brought to justice, accused of treason and executed in 1328. Yet, even his death couldn't erase the questions surrounding his role in Edward's demise. The chronicles of the period paint a conflicting picture of Roger, a ruthless traitor, a cunning manipulator, and perhaps a reluctant participant in a desperate act of survival. The Brut, a medieval chronicle, portrays him as a villain, a traitor who betrayed his king and his country. But other sources offer a more nuanced perspective, suggesting that Roger was simply a pawn in a larger game, a victim of circumstance and political expediency. The question of Edward's murder remains a subject of intense debate among historians. Was he deliberately killed, as some believe? Or was he simply a casualty of political intrigue, a victim of his own weakness and the machinations of his enemies? The evidence is inconclusive, a tangled mess of conflicting accounts and unreliable sources. The description of a medal, a small, unassuming piece of metal, offers a tantalizing glimpse into the world of royal rewards and punishments. The medal, commissioned by Edward III, was awarded to Berkeley and Maltravers for their role in the king's deception. It was a tangible symbol of their loyalty, a reward for their complicity in one of the most audacious betrayals in English history. As the years passed, the truth about Edward's death was obscured by layers of propaganda and speculation. The Brut, a medieval chronicle, became the dominant narrative, shaping public perception for centuries to come. But other sources, letters, charters, and legal documents offered alternative interpretations, challenging the conventional wisdom and revealing a more complex and ambiguous picture. The story of Edward II's death is not simply a tale of betrayal and murder. It's a story of ambition, deception, and the enduring power of narrative. It's a reminder that history is not a fixed and immutable record. It's a constantly evolving interpretation of the past, shaped by the biases and perspectives of those who write it. And as we delve deeper into the details of this extraordinary drama, one thing becomes clear. The truth about Edward II's death is far stranger, far more unsettling, and far more captivating than any ballad could ever convey. Was Edward II truly dead? Or was a carefully constructed lie draped over a desperate king, a secret kept beneath layers of deceit and whispered plots? Did Isabella, the queen scorned, orchestrate a macabre game of shadows, a desperate bid to reclaim her husband and crown? And what role did Berkeley and Maltravers, those shadowy figures of betrayal, play in this deadly dance?